Should companies be allowed to release like all these powerful AI tools without proving they've stress tested them for social harm, especially women?
It's shocking that there's all this rigor around toilet paper and the lack of rigor around transparency and all of that when it comes to AI.
Why do we regulate physical safety rigorously, but treat digital harm as an intangible?
When adding safety slows things down, safety can start to look like a cost rather than a priority.
Not to keep it doom and gloom, but it's not going to get better in the next few years. All the US are doing and all Donald Trump is doing is eliminating DE&I.
Abuse has become monetizable and part of the infrastructure.
If we're not careful, the future is going to belong to the beautiful and dumb.
I like it as a concept. Do I like it as a reality? Probably not.
The speed of change right now is quite frightening if you overthink it.
It's the end of the introvert.
Hello and welcome to episode 107 of Disconnected. I'm your host, Jag Sharma, joined by my co-hosts Jen Campbell in Hong Kong, Felina Tan in London, and special guest Patti Balbas, who is based out of London. And together, we'll be delving into the world of AI, tech, and social media, and how it's impacting society and culture. Coming up, Jen kills Felina's dream of one unified messenger platform to rule them all. Felina explains how tech has turned against women, and it's darker than we thought. Special guest Patti introduces to us a future world where we are valued on charismocracy, as well as other trending topics. But before we start, allow me to introduce our special guest, Patti Balbas. With over 20 years in marketing, Patti blends an empathetic ear, an analytical brain, and a creative heart to design brand and customer experiences that make people feel genuinely heard and understood. Having shaped strategy for global names like Google, YouTube, and UBS, Patti brings to us a deep expertise across brand, customer experience, digital, research, and growth. And today, she joins us to help unpack this fast-changing world we live in and how it's changing us all. Welcome, Patti, to Disconnected.
Hello. Thank you, Jag. Really great to be here. Very pumped, excited.
Brilliant. We are excited as well. And you know what? Let's get into it. And let's start with our first story. Jen, you're going to shatter Felina's dream. Meta is shutting down its messenger website.
I know, it's been less than a month, I think, Felina, I'm afraid, since you made your prediction.
God. I am not a crystal ball. Don't ever take predictions from me anymore.
Listen, I'm just pleased because I'm normally the worst and yours has failed first, so that's good for me. So anyone who didn't listen to our prediction shows at the beginning of the year, we all come up with what we think is going to happen. What happens here is that Jag reads the news and then he tells us what was in the news as a prediction, and then he gets his predictions right. Felina and I make actual predictions. So Felina's prediction was that Meta was going to finally bring all its messaging platforms together in one app to rule them all, where you could read all your messages. And sadly, the announcement has just been made that they're going to shut down the messenger.com website. Now, it doesn't actually mean they're getting rid of Facebook Messenger, and it's more of a signal of intent that they're not going to bring all their platforms together. You can still message your friends, don't you worry, or your grandparents, which is probably more to the point now rather than friends. But the messenger.com website is closing down in April. And so you'll get redirected to the facebook.com website. I was meant to look it up before, but I ran out of time. I'm sure most people now use the Messenger app anyway. I can't believe there's that many people using the messenger.com website. And obviously, it's really reducing their costs and their labor and their management upkeep of another platform. I think at the minute, a lot of their platforms are already a bit in peril, so they probably need to focus their time elsewhere, which is why it's going. But yeah, sorry, Felina. Bad news for you, I'm afraid.
I do hope that they will not cull the Messenger app just yet. And I say that because when I see, and I rarely go on Facebook, but sometimes there are good, easy recipes on Facebook that I see. And what I do is I send it to my husband. And obviously it will funnel through the Messenger app. And so I'm like, oh man, it's just going to take like one more step where like, oh, you have to copy the link of that video, send it to him either on like WhatsApp or send it to him on Instagram or whatever it is. And it's just like, that's going to be really annoying.
I wonder if your husband is the reason they're shutting this down. Maybe he's
come
written to them and said,
on.
I don't need any more recipes. Can you take this away? Thank you.
They're going to lose 90% of their traffic if they stayed anyway. Felina's husband's had enough.
I know. No, but it's a shame. I mean, I understand closing down the website because, as you said, upkeep, but it would be really, really interesting to understand the number of users who actually engage with Facebook Messenger just around the globe. The number could be higher than the number of people using X or Twitter. Why are they doing this? Why?
It's funny because they don't have... So they shut down the Mac and iOS app last year. I think it was October or November last year. But if you think about the way Instagram and Threads, although adding Messenger to Threads is wild given what it's supposed to be. But if you think about their inboxes, they don't have separate apps for that. So is there a need for it? Like, I wonder if I would be surprised if they got rid of it entirely. I suspect they will keep Messenger. It just doesn't need to be on its own platform.
I think I'm like probably the target market for that, actually, because I do not engage on Facebook at all. But I do have, I actually the use case you brought up earlier, like older people in my family, people who just don't have WhatsApp or are too scared because they think it's like they think there'll be an international cost to it for some reason, but they feel really comfortable on Messenger. And because I don't actually go to view the social media aspect of Facebook, I think I'm the target market for Messenger. Yeah, because I will use it, but like never venture onto the social media side.
I find for Messenger, it's all my university friends from the US. I got my undergraduate degree from the US, and it's the main way that I communicate with them is through Messenger, and they're not on WhatsApp. So maybe, Patti, you give me an insight there into potentially why they're not on WhatsApp and why maybe WhatsApp's not as big as it could have been in the US, for example. But what I find interesting here is that I think it signals what Meta is doing strategically, because for years, Meta did talk about a unified messaging backend across WhatsApp, Instagram, and Messenger. But all of that is now it seems like that's dead in the water. I think largely because of, potentially legal threats or privacy laws in certain regions, like in the EU. So I think we're seeing a pivot back to simplification, cost control. So it's fewer platforms for Meta to technically manage. It's fewer surfaces to maintain, tighter integration back into Facebook. Maybe it will get people that got comfortable with just using Messenger and avoiding Facebook completely. Maybe it'll encourage those people back into Facebook because they'll have to log into Facebook before clicking the Messenger tab, for example. So therefore, I think it subtly reinforces Facebook as the home base rather than Messenger as a standalone identity. It certainly feels less like innovation and more like rationalization. So a company trimming complexity due to existential pressure. But I think practically, will users even care? Because the standalone Messenger app on my iPhone is still there. And I think from what you're saying, Jen, it's just the website that's going to be shut down, the Messenger website. Yeah. So as long as there's still a separate Messenger app, I wonder if users will care.
So what Jag is saying is my predictions not entirely off the table, right? That's what you're saying, Jag.
I love that you're a dreamer, and I love your optimism here, and you keep believing, What did I call you in that episode? The little engine that could or would or whatever. But, it's not going to happen. I don't think the unified Messenger app is going to happen. And this points to that. Sorry. Not sorry.
I mean, he shut you down in the episode and he's just shut you down again, huh?
I know. I'll be the one having the last laugh.
Now I'm going to have to be staring at my phone during work time to message my family at home instead of screen on my computer. I've got to go in the app.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yes. Anyway, right. Thanks for that, Jen. And you know what? Why don't we move on? And Felina, why don't we come to you? It's quite a difficult topic. I'm really glad you're bringing it up. But yes, why don't you take us through how tech has turned against women?
It's not a prediction this time. I promise you this story is going to be based on facts. So we know that International Women's Day is coming up, right? It's going to be on March 8th, every year, same date. We're going to hear a lot about progress in the next few weeks, in the next month, where because of International Women's Day, news outlets, tech brands are going to talk about, more women in leadership or more girls learning to code and really more funding for female founders. It just seems like that's always the trend. But a recent Financial Times investigation raises a harder question, which is around what kind of technology are we actually building and who is it really designed to serve? Is it actually against women? Is it supporting our community? So what the FT has reported is that generative AI tools have been used to create huge volumes of non-consensual sexual images of women, like politicians, journalists, celebrities, citizens, etc., etc. And these images are all produced quite quickly, and they also spread far and wide. We know that it's very disturbing, but the bigger issue isn't just the shock factor. It's really how these systems are built in the first place. So we know that, yes, AI doesn't appear out of nowhere. It's developed inside companies that are very much under pressure to grow fast, to scale fast, and to capture attention. That's just how the models work. But what we also have noticed, I think collectively as I guess a community, is that when adding safety slows things down, safety can start to look like a cost rather than a priority. And so just noticing that trade-off is quite important. So what this article or investigation also points is to a broader imbalance where, okay, women only make up about 12% of AI researchers. Female founders receive around 2% of venture capital funding. And I think the thing it's pointed out is that when people who are building these systems don't reflect the people who are most affected by them, because speed is rewarded above caution, then blind spots tend to happen. And we've sort of seen this before, in the past. It's not a new thing, because we've noticed that, healthcare algorithms can miss women's symptoms, or facial recognition symptoms misidentify women. So it's not to say that technology itself is anti-women, but the real question is whether these business models, especially those built around engagement and scale, so a lot of the AI platforms, are they set up to prioritize safety when safety competes with speed? So yeah, I guess one of the things that I'm taking away from this article from the Financial Times is okay, we know that we need to set clearer standards upfront. We need to build in accountability. We need to treat governance as part of innovation. All of that is ethics. But should companies be allowed to release all these powerful AI tools without proving they've stress tested them for social harm, especially women, the way that we do with other industries? So yeah, just I don't have an answer for that, but I just wanted to pose that as a discussion.
Yesterday, I was listening to another podcast around toilet paper and how various companies test their toilet paper to ensure it's strong enough. It can validate the claims that they have in their packaging, whether or not it's X amount of softness or thickness, whatever. And I just think it's shocking that there's all this rigor around toilet paper and the lack of rigor around transparency and all of that when it comes to AI. And the other thing is that I saw today that Anthropic has dropped their commitment to safety from their mission statement, I believe it is. And the rationale was exactly what you're saying with regards to the balance between safety and speed, and that competitors are starting to, outpace in certain ways because they don't have those, that in their mission statement when it comes to specifically to safety and harm. And that sort of saddened me. Where were the women on the board that were making that decision? And I don't know how many women are on the board of Anthropic or on the leadership team, but that is, I think, a step in the wrong direction for sure. And they considered themselves pioneers because of that. But now now it's just a token of history, pun intended.
I'm thinking a lot about the toilet paper example now, and how obviously all these tech companies with like billions and billions of capital can't even, do that.
And the part of your article I loved as well was how it was, and you brought this up, right? It's training on data that is primarily like male based. And so if it's training on that, then obviously the outcome is not going to be something that's prioritizing either health symptoms of women or safety and privacy of women, because that's what the internet is now. Looking out there is, full of, horrible, horrible opportunities for people to take advantage of women, and particularly politicians, where in the article too, it said that that's primarily the reason why female politicians step back is because of basically online abuse. So it's just perpetuating, right? And that means that fewer women will be in politics. That then, when fewer women are in politics, there are fewer women standing up for laws that would prevent stuff like this. So yeah, it could be a tipping point for something negative, but I'm also hoping that, there are going to be some outliers that will come in and challenge that, what seems like impending status quo.
Why do we regulate physical safety rigorously, to Patti's point, but treat digital harm as an intangible? Because reading this article that you kindly shared, Felina, we're not just talking about deepfakes of celebrities. We're talking about schoolgirls dropping out, women losing jobs, victims developing PTSD, even risks of honor-based violence. The harm is profoundly real, and the data is chilling. There's over 100 Nudify apps in app stores with hundreds of millions of downloads. It's a ridiculous amount of revenue, which the platforms take a cut of. So abuse has become monetizable and part of the infrastructure. To the point about, other forms of safety being considered, driverless cars, they need to meet strict safety standards before touching roads, yet AI tools capable of mass producing sexualized images, sexualized abuse are released into the wild with virtually no guardrails. Layer on top the algorithmic bias in healthcare, recruitment, credit scoring. We're not just talking about harassment here. We're seeing structural inequality being automated. And I think you made some of these other points as well, Felina, about, AI researchers, women making up just 12%, receiving way less VC funding, a ridiculously low percentage. So women are not the majority of people that are building this system, AI, but they have to live with it and they have to live inside it. And, Patti made a point about Anthropic, and whatever that board of directors decided, of the 12 board members, 2 of them are female. So there are female voices on that board, but it's obviously a minority. And I wonder what Anthropic were considering in that moment. But yeah, not good to read, essentially almost on the eve of International Women's Day.
Can I add one more thing to that? Just a different POV as a mom. So I have a 6-year-old daughter, and it's kind of related to my topic as well of what's the future, going to look like. I'll become the prediction person now, but how do I parent knowing that in a few years my child will have, she's out of the public at school anyway all day, and there are pictures put up of school assemblies or whatever, but how do I parent the responsibility that she needs to have when it comes to her image, knowing that it can be taken and sexualized? like this. So like, I'm trying to get ahead of it because I did read the stories of those schoolgirls who had to drop out. So how do I parent to help mitigate the risk for her? And I do not have the answer to that. I'm going to be risk averse on that topic, but it's chilling, really. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's frightening, and it's not not to keep it doom and gloom, but it's not going to get better in the next few years, because all the US are doing and all Donald Trump is doing is eliminating DE&I. So even if you had people in positions who would speak up and say something about it in the less HR traditional DE&I space, but even in the technology space, that's not going to happen until these, like the federal, they've taken them out of all government workforces. So until they're put back in, for people who are regulating these companies, they're not in any way incentivized to do that, for a start. And to Jag's point about why are consumer goods under such scrutiny, and the driverless car one's a classic example, because physical harm is easier for people to shout about and show as an issue versus mental harm. And you'll have too many people who still don't believe in mental health and who still don't believe if someone commits suicide that it was driven by something they saw online. They can make a narrative up that's completely different. If somebody's in a driverless car and they knock someone over, like if a driverless car knocks somebody over, whose fault is it? It's the cars. So it's the tangible piece of it's really difficult. And I cannot believe that we are 30, however many years into having the internet, and this still hasn't been resolved as a thing that happens. And that cyberbullying was never really stopped, like people will say that they have a lot of safety checks in place, and it's only, one of the things we'll come on to, but it's only getting worse with AI, and that checking these things is really difficult, and really the scale of it is huge. So as a female wanting to go into a role that's developing, like it's doing research in this area, do you really want to be the person that's involved in a tool that's causing this much damage? I don't know. I would suspect a lot of people drop out for that reason. And yeah, I think it's a bit of a sad state of affairs. I don't see it getting fixed in the next couple of years. It's just something everybody has to be aware of and has to be mindful of. And you'd hope that the good of the world will power through and will kind of rectify it. But it's not going away.
You've hit on something there, Jen, that really resonates with me, because you mentioned about women going into roles that work in this area, but then not even women that are working in these roles. What if fewer women in general engage with AI because it feels unsafe to them? That has a multitude of knock-on effects in terms of, when we think in the workplace, there's an increased use of AI, but then if women are not engaging with AI in general, does that then put them even more behind or put their jobs more at risk? Or has them kind of left behind a bit? That's a knock-on effect.
I completely see what you're saying. The only thing is, it's almost impossible not to use AI in what I do currently, right? Like Copilot is being hammered down my throat like you wouldn't believe. And it's great. There's some things that it's really good for. And I think it's going to come back to that, people's view of what it is. And the example of this is, people will use Google to search, but people won't be on social media platforms because they don't believe in the platform. Like they don't like what the platforms are doing, right? They separate those two things. But at the end of the day, it's the internet. So I think what will happen is the workforce, AI and tools will be seen as one thing, and this harmful part of AI will be seen as a separate thing. And that's even more dangerous, because then you're kind of enabling it because it's already being used. So I don't think people will struggle to separate those two things, I think.
It might create an opportunity for arbitrage, though. Arbitrage being another potential competitor startup could, come in and own the space of safety now that Anthropic has given up. And I know there's huge entry costs into AI, but what I can foresee is maybe some of these big organizations in a few years, if a safety pioneer truly comes along, that they might, ultimately purchase it and hopefully create a pillar around that.
I like that, because I was thinking, remember, this is a bit of a tangent, but B Corp. when all the agencies wanted that B Corp stamp because, it's to say that you're supporting climate causes and the whole net zero agenda. And everybody who got a B Corp official certificate were like loudly proclaiming it on like LinkedIn, on their website. And then, recent years, we obviously discovered that, okay, B Corp was just handing it out like candy and supporting agencies which also support brands that perpetuate the whole fossil fuel environment. So there is something there, Patty. Maybe tomorrow you go start it, and then we
I'm on it.
Okay, great.
I'm on it. Yeah.
Sadly, that comes back to safety doesn't make money. Sorry.
Money makes the world go round. Hey, it's capitalism we live in.
Thank you, Felina. Thank you for taking us through that topic. It was a difficult read, but I'm really glad you brought it to the table. And you know what? Let's move on, guys. And why don't we move on to our special guest, Patti, who's going to take us into the future potential world of charismocracy.
Yes. So I got an email from my alma mater, University of Chicago. I went to business school at Booth. And I saw an article come through from one of my fave professors, and I loved the title. J.P. Rollert, by the way, the professor. But title was "Your Grandkids Will Live in a Charismocracy." I was like, well, that's a fun word. Let me learn a little bit more about this. And basically, he's proposing that if we're not careful, the future is going to belong to the beautiful and dumb. So he says. And essentially, he talks about University of Chicago, obviously being a school founded on economics and famous for economics. He started with the quote, "In the long run, we're all dead," by John Maynard Keynes, who's like the father of modern economics. So, he is basing it in this economic prediction that Keynes made that said, basically, in 100 years, everyone is going to be chilling. Like the productivity will be 8 times what it is today. We're going to be very, very wealthy, and we'll only work 15-hour work weeks. So I currently do not work a 15-hour work week. I don't know about any of you guys, but working a lot more than that.
Not me as well. I would hope for 15-hour weeks. That's great.
Right? 15-hour work weeks would be amazing. So unfortunately, only half of his prediction really came true, which is there's huge strides in productivity from, he made this prediction in around 1929, so around sort of the Great Depression era. And, the productivity aspect did come true, but obviously the amount of work aspect did not. And everyone's working more than ever, really. And so JP's sort of hypothesis is now that we have AI, that the age of intellect is going to die, really. And we're sort of at the peak of it now, in that, being smart matters, having expertise matters, having that badge of a degree proves that you've gone through school, read those books, learned that content. But with AI, like what's the point? That you could just kind of have AI do all of the learning for humanity. Therefore, there's going to be no need to really go to school to learn things, because AI will be able to do things for us. And so, for me, that brings up like the calculator, like, yes. And he mentions this as well in the article. But it resonates, right? Like we all had to go to school to learn addition, subtraction, multiplication, but we could still use a calculator for some of those big numbers. And I think, hopefully one day we'll, as a society, sort of land in a place where that could be how we leverage AI rather than having it do everything. At least we have to learn the foundations of how it works, what its capabilities are, and have that foundation of human knowledge, because ultimately that's what's going to keep AI sort of within its lane and ring fenced from humanity. And I think that's going to be like quite important. But ultimately, he suggests that when we have AI doing everything for us in 100 years, that the new currency rather than intellect is going to be charisma and how many people like us, essentially. And we could also ironically use tools these tools and AI in order to create sort of the most perfect version of ourselves in the future. And that sort of it'll be a race towards popularity. And so I find that really interesting because I think one, we're sort of reaching that space now anyway. It's sort of just hyper inflated in 100 years. But I also, think that there's a pendulum when it comes to culture. And I think we might meet that peak charismocracy, actually, not in 100 years, but maybe in about 20 to 30, where then society, I believe, will sort of swing back probably in the other direction, looking for authenticity and actually really demanding the authentic human aspect of life if and when we do have AI sort of running all of the back end, quote unquote, if you will. I'm hoping that we don't end up living in this world of beautiful and dumb, but it's sort of a warning, right? And it reads tongue in cheek to me, and I truly hope that there's a day in which that pendulum, if it ever does swing towards charismocracy, that it actually does swing back towards authenticity and humatocracy, if I can coin a new word. So yeah, that's the article. I love JP, and I found that to be sort of a really interesting take on what the future could look like in 100 years. And I wish I did have a crystal ball, but I definitely hope it's not that.
It got me thinking about that episode from Black Mirror called Nosedive, and it's the one where everyone sort of rates each other after every interaction, and you get a social score, right?
I thought exactly the same. Exactly the same.
And it's how like status is literally quantified as popularity, and it just reminded me of that because it's like, okay, if being smart is almost status quo now, then what will make the difference will be around things like, I don't know, cultural taste or like influence. And it's just, it just hit too much like that Black Mirror episode. And Black Mirror has obviously been very successful with their predictions in the past. And this whole piece around charismocracy is I think we're living in it already. It's just that it's going to become worse and worse and worse. And this is the first time that I've ever actually seen the word charismocracy as well. And I like it. I like it as a concept. Do I like it as a reality? Probably not. But yeah, that was what came to me after I read the whole piece.
So that's really interesting for me because I think I'm going to be a bit more optimistic in this space, because I think for a long time, intellect has been pinned against education. And you make a point about, universities there to prove, that you can do the work. I would say I am absolutely no better off for having gone to university. And I did a neuroscience degree. Like, it's not like I did a degree, and that included a lot of study.
One.
Well, I didn't want to say serious. It's not even, but
no, it is.
My point
compared
is,
to me, I did like a mass communication one, so it's a serious degree.
But I don't know that the skills that I've learned, and I don't know because how do you test it, right? But for the job adverts, a lot of the time are like, must have a university degree. Why do I need a university degree to work in marketing? Like, what I do has no relation on what I did at university. And I know the point is that it's supposed to prove you can sit 3 years and, sit under the control of studies and whatnot. But I truly believe some of the most interesting, and I would say intellectual in different ways, people that I've met never even went to university. So I think, there's a curiosity that has to come from people. And if people don't necessarily have that kind of, I'll take accounting as an example, right? There are people who are very, very good at business and who can really thrive as an entrepreneur, but they don't have the accounting side of it. And if a tool can give them that, and that can set them up to be a really good entrepreneur, and they can then progress through, and it takes them further in life than they could have gone without it, then I think that's great, because what they've done is added the charisma they have, the personality they have, their ability to do some things, and tacked a tool on top of it. And so I think there is a human piece of it where I think we need to start thinking differently about what intellect is. And AI, sure, you do less steps to get an output from AI, but you still have to do something. It's not just going to give people exactly what they want. Like, you're going to get out of it what you put in.
I think his point was like in 100 years, we will have cycled through that part. And like the accounting example is great. But I think his point is in 100 years, once there's no need for an accountant, there's no need for a marketer. And so I don't think the point was around like degree badging, but more around there won't even be the need to learn anything through life experience because AI will be able to do everything for you. I think if we can maintain your point of view through the next 20, 30 years, then we might make it to the 100 successfully without that happening. But I think it is your point about like, yeah, a degree might, have some kind of badge, but so would 20, 30 years of experience, or even however many years of experience, any experience, right? That an AI doesn't have,
Yeah, exactly. And I still believe there will be jobs that can't completely be done by AI. So they will remain. People still need to make money. Like, how's the world going to work? It's just a new era, I think. And I don't think I'm quite as the world is going to come to an end pessimistic about it as some, maybe. I don't know. Jag, what about you?
I think we're already seeing this. I think we're already seeing charismocracy happening around us. We're seeing founders that are also acting as influencers. We're seeing CEOs that are also content creators. Gary Vee comes to mind, CEO that's also a content creator and an influencer. And then even as long ago as, do you remember David Cameron, Prime Minister, around 2010 in the UK? At the time, he had a YouTube channel and he used to post regularly to the YouTube channel. And so I think we were already seeing kind of the infancy of this. And, I think that the notion that in an AI saturated world that, intellect becomes commoditized and charisma becoming the differentiator, I think then the question that comes to me is then kind of what remains to be uniquely human. And then, it kind of leads to what this is of charismocracy of, okay, what is uniquely human? Presence, charm, likability, influence. The danger, I think, is when distinction becomes performance rather than substance. And I think that's the point perhaps you were making, Jen, where if there's still substance, then, the performance part of it is not so much of a worry as long as there is substance behind it. So, yeah, I think we are seeing the infancy of this. And then when my mind wanders, I then start to think, is this where looks maxing has come from? Because my Threads feed is all about looks maxing. Maybe Threads is trying to give me a massive hint. I don't know. But that's all I'm seeing right now. And then I think, well, is all of this kind of linked in a way? Do people feel that they now have to, look their absolute best and that the outside is what really counts, and then faking charisma, forcing themselves to be something that they may not want to be? And I guess who gets left behind then? If this world that Patti has brought to us comes to fruition, who gets left behind and what happens to them?
Introverts get left behind.
Yeah.
It's the end of the introvert in 100 years.
But can the introvert look moody and distracted in the corner of a coffee house, and that could still work for them? Could that be their charismocracy? I don't know.
Yeah, the brooding introvert. That's definitely a persona. So maybe, yeah.
Yeah. But it is worrying. It does come back to what you said, you as a parent, what is the future for your kids? I've got twin nephews, they're 13, and even I worry for them. I think, well, immediately as they start looking towards potentially university in 5 or so years' time, what are they going to study? And then is it going to be useful when they graduate? But then does it matter what you study? Does university even matter? It's just like this, the speed of change right now is quite frightening if you overthink it.
Yeah. And I wonder too, like, to me, the basics might be what make humans useful in the future. Because if, for instance, right now what's happening is a lot of junior roles are being AI'd, right? And now it's the more senior people who can like check it to make sure, hey, is this the right output? Does this make sense, et cetera? And so the cost cutting, I think, is happening a lot on sort of the junior end as well. And so who then is the next generation after the seniors retire, or the more senior folks, who, if half these, young people aren't getting jobs because of AI, who's learning the basics that is actually, who's going to be checking this AI in about 30 years? So I think, to me, that's a really interesting point you raise about your nephews, because what young people now that are going to be entering the workforce in 10 years, what can that even look like? The article was about 100 years from now, but 10 years from now is going to be really interesting if we don't start to integrate the thinking about the impact of young people today and what jobs are being eliminated because of AI. How do we supplement that as a human race, like for humanity? How are we going to do that?
Completely. Youth unemployment's at its highest. You guys, you all come from agency backgrounds, and how many agencies are not taking on entry level, or certainly reduced a lot of their entry level roles? How are young people going to learn if they don't get to do those entry level positions, if they don't get to be the junior account exec?
Maybe it's people with tangible craft that will win. So, for example, I keep thinking, I was like, I wish I had like the capability to become like a furniture designer. Like, those people will probably win, right? Because they have the creativity and the capability of designing things that just something refreshing, something new that's not like cookie cutter, and it's not to do with anything that AI can do around accounting or marketing. I don't know. Maybe everyone needs to go get a degree in like design and technology, or just have a tangible craft. I don't know. That could be it. I wish I did that, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's something.
Felina, if you want to be a furniture designer, you go be a furniture designer.
I can't. I'm not good at math.
Why not?
There's a whole list of reasons. I know people say, you can start your life at 50, at 60. I think I'm just gonna resign myself to fate and box myself in my current.
You're like half those ages that you mentioned, but you're like, no, it's over. It's done for me.
But yeah, it would be interesting to see like the types of jobs that just popular and are glorified for being like shit hot, like in the next 100 years, because I don't think it's going to be the same as what they are now. So yeah.
And are we going to have like a reemergence of in person? Because that's the only way you can authenticate that it's not an AI, like on video, right? Like, no more deep fakes. I need to see you on the corner at the coffee shop.
Jack will be sending his robot along.
Yeah, don't get me back into the office, Patti. I've carved myself a nice work from home niche here, But you might be right there. You might be right. You might, because we're fast approaching an age now where we can't even trust video. So we've gone like 120 years where video has always been fact, whereas now you see a video and you can't fully trust it. You're already asking in the back of your mind, is this AI? And I think within 3 to 5 years, it would be like that with every video that you see, that you just won't be able to trust if it's real or not, or the general assumption will be it's video, therefore it's make-believe, unless I'm told otherwise. So yeah. Interesting chat. Thank you, Patti. Thank you for bringing Charismocracy to the table. Let's see. I think it's already happening, but let's hope it takes a good turn, as Jen raised. And you know what? I think we'll leave it there today. So thank you, Patti, for joining us as guest today on Disconnected. I really appreciate you joining, and I hope you had fun with us. And yeah, really thank you for your time.
I did. I had a great time. Thanks for having me, Jack.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you, Jen. Thank you, Felina. Thank you, listeners. This has been episode 107 of Disconnected, and we'll see you on the next one.